Hello, everyone, and welcome to this session of the Leadership Forum, the Summer Leadership Forum, produced by the University of Hong Kong. I'm very delighted to join you this afternoon. My name is Professor Derek Collins, and I'm Dean of the Faculty of Arts. And our contribution to this series of Leadership Forums deals with strategies for success with young people. We are delighted to have 4 young people with us, 4 alumni, some more recent, some a little bit further back, to share their thoughts and their experiences with you. Let me just tell you a little bit about the series before I say something about each of our guests today. And so when we talk about strategies for success when it comes to arts students and arts graduates, we sometimes think of it in a slightly different way. Art students, as we know, are very well equipped with critical thinking skills and language skills and communication ability, creative capacity, things like that. And we often say in the Faculty of Arts that we don't prepare our students for a specific job, but we do prepare them for numerous types of jobs that may change over time. Maybe some people start their careers in one area and then move on to another area later in life, and that the sorts of experience and enrichment that they get as students of arts gives them the capacity to be flexible and to move, for example, not only to different jobs and to different companies, but perhaps even move to different parts of the world. We also think in arts that overseas experience of one kind or another is very valuable to students. And some of the guests that we have today will talk perhaps about their own experience overseas. But we think this is really important because part of what we're trying to do in the Faculty of Arts is to allow students to engage with other cultures and other parts of the world. And they need firsthand knowledge of those other cultures and those other parts of the world. So it's in that context that we want to ask some questions today of our guests about how do they define success and what are the opportunities opportunities they've had and they've benefited from, but even to get them to think ahead, to think in the future, what opportunities there may yet be out there, perhaps even occupations or jobs that don't yet exist, but maybe they can help us think a little bit about that too, and then how their arts preparation has enabled them to achieve the success they have to date and to prepare themselves for the future. So that's really the background. And so I'm delighted that we have 4 wonderful alumni with us today, and they are all in different schools. We have 4 schools within the Faculty of Arts. Each alumnus or alumna is from a different school. And so I'd like to start first with Lesley. Lesley is a growth strategy specialist with JC Legal. She was a major in English studies and comparative literature. Next, we have Adelaide. And I should have said both Adelaide and Lesley graduated in 2016. But next we have Adelaide, and she was a history and English studies major, and currently she works in business development. She's a customer experience manager for customer propositions and marketing for HSBC. We have Wendy after that, who graduated in 2014. She was a Japanese studies and psychology major. Wendy is an advisor of the global business division of a leading bank in Japan. She'll say more about that specifically later. And she currently lives and works in Tokyo. And finally, we have Felix. Felix graduated in 2008 with a BA in Chinese history and culture and Chinese language and literature. Felix is a director for Asia and head of sales in modern Asian art for Sotheby's, and so works very much directly in the commercial art world. So with that brief introduction, I'd now like to ask each speaker to maybe say a little bit more about themselves, and we'll start with Lesley. So Lesley, maybe give us just a little bit longer introduction than my own, and so please welcome. And
thank you very much, Professor Collins, and I'm really glad and honored to be able to be on this forum with 3 other distinguished alumni of the faculty. So just a bit more about myself. As Professor Collins said, I graduated in 2016 with double majors in English Studies and Comparative Literature. Throughout my university life, I consider myself quite active in student life and student affairs. So in my freshman year, I also served on the Faculty Students Association, the Arts Association, where I coordinated a series of academic and arts and cultural activities. And in my penultimate year, I also joined the faculty exchange program and attended a semester exchange in University College Utrecht in the Netherlands. It was a very eye-broadening experience for me. I really relished the time spent there in Europe. And upon my graduation, I started my position as a media relations position in the Hong Kong Trade Development Council, where I basically coordinated press release and press events and press publicity for international trade exhibitions. And I also got to expose to leading projects like the Summer Book Fair every year, as well as some major trade events, such as the jewelry shows and also the watching clock fair. So this is also a very rewarding experience for me as a fresh graduate. So currently I work in a law firm called JC Legal, and my role is more of a hybrid kind. So as a growth strategy specialist, I work in marketing, business development, and also forge partnerships with different strategic partners and related service providers as well. And I also support the legal team in the recruitment and in publicizing their own legal practice. So as someone not trained in the legal field, but in my firm, my role is to also help others shine, so sort of also help others achieve greater success. So as my hybrid role in marketing and business development, I also got to travel to Malaysia, which is also a strategic jurisdiction that our firm practices in. So this is a very enriching role for me to further expand my career. So this is a bit about me for now.
Terrific. Thank you. Thank you. Adelaide, how about you?
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Adelaide, and just like Lesley, I graduated from the University of Hong Kong with double majors in 2016 in history and English studies. So during my time at HKU, I did an exchange program at the University of Notre Dame in the US. And also I was an active participant in the Hong Kong a cappella group called Mosaic for all 4 years. So I had a really great university life. So after I graduated, I joined HSBC as a management trainee, and I rotated within 4 departments in the first 2 years I was there. And after that, I actually joined the compliance department, so leading on a series of regulatory-related projects. And then now I just switched into the customer proposition and marketing department, where our main objective is to develop a customer-centric strategy and partner with our global counterparts, for example, in London, which is our headquarters, so that we can deliver the best products, the best service, and the best experience to our customers in Hong Kong. At the same time, I'm actually doing a Master's of Law at the University of Hong Kong, so an LLM. In compliance and regulation, because that is really the bedrock of our financial services industry, as the regulations are constantly changing. And so, I'm equipping myself now with more knowledge, and also from the University of Hong Kong as well, but just from a different faculty. So that's a little bit about me. So happy to chat with all of you today.
Oh, that's great. Thank you very much. Wendy, how about you?
Yes, hi everybody. Thank you, Professor Collins. And thank you again for having me today. I'm more than honored to be one of the alumni here. So I'm Wendy. Actually, I'm from Shanghai, and I graduated in 2014 with a double major in Japanese studies and psychology. I probably will share of my university life later with some examples later on. Well, actually, I'm working for a Japanese bank in its Tokyo headquarters now, and this is my 6th year. Actually, I was in Osaka for the first 2 and 3 years. I was a relationship manager, but now currently I'm an advisor in the global business division to provide finance and business strategies for Japanese companies in East Asia, which includes China, Hong Kong, and Taiwan. So in my spare time, actually, I love traveling, exploring Japan's gardens, temples, galleries, and of course, restaurants. Thank you very much for having me today.
Excellent. You're welcome. Thank you very much. And then Felix.
Hi, everybody. This is Felix Kwok, and I graduated in 2008. During my student time, I'm a very committed student leaders in the student union. And at the same time, a very committed student athlete, apart from my studies in the faculty. After graduation, I spent 1 year in Beijing, a wonderful year, as an advertising agency account executive. And then afterwards, I spent 2 years in the Chinese University Art Museum as a research assistant. And then in 2012, I joined Sotheby as a specialist trainee. And afterwards, I spent almost 10 years until nowadays. Now I am head of sale of modern Asian art. And at the same time, I'm the auctioneer of Sotheby's Asia.
Oh, fantastic. Thank you. So let's start with just a very general question, which has to do again with sort of the Bachelor of Arts as a preparation for your different careers. So maybe each of you could say something about this. I'll ask two questions. Really, how did your BA training equip you for your career development? And then secondly, how, in your view, did your BA equip you for your own personal development? I know these are two separate issues, but they're kind of related. So maybe we could start again with Lesley, and we'll just kind of go around in that order until we mix it up a bit. But I'd love to hear what you think about these questions.
Thank you. For BA, I've always heard during my undergraduate years that it stands for be anything. So when I was a student, I was also quite confused. Oh, actually, what kind of career am I open to? So, when I really started working for a few years now, I really agree that the BA training is really a broad-based one that trains one to be suited for many different kinds of careers. So for my own experience, I think the critical thinking and communication skills is really helpful that I gained from my BA training. So I still remember in a literature class back then, there was a dedicated writing workshop. So that in that workshop, we need to pick a paragraph from our own essay, and we need to keep fine-tuning it. So in that very intensive writing class, so we kind of keep asking ourselves how to write that paragraph better, how to create the linkage, the connection better, how to phrase this, or how best to express a certain concept or explain a certain theory, or how to demonstrate our understanding of theory. So I think this kind of exercise stays with me, like even though after my undergraduate years. So when I was drafting emails, when I was preparing for presentations, or when I was like preparing for any other kind of text or marketing purpose, so I will still bear this in mind. So for communication, we need to write very clearly with context, with awareness of the reader as well, and to pick the right precise language, and to write in a very rigorous structure. So these are the skills that I still bear in mind when I'm working in a professional context. And for another skill that is more relevant to my current role is textual analysis and interpretation. So in our firm, my role is also to sometimes discuss and explore with my colleagues how a certain clause can be understood. So usually this is the position and the role of lawyers and paralegals, but sometimes we'll have debates and discussions about, how can we understood this clause, like from a layman point of view. So I'm always someone who provides input, but from a non-legal background. So as someone, maybe a layman reader, or maybe from a client's perspective, will this be misleading? Will this be confusing? Or would it generate other implications? So I will kind of provide some feedback on that aspect, and also try to break down some very specialist jargons into more understandable, more human-centered language, so that clients or maybe general public can easily understand. So when we try to share our legal knowledge, we try not to sound too specialist and too niche. So that's why we can't speak to the wider public. So my role is also to bridge the professional and the more democratic and the more public voice. As for personal development, I can elaborate a bit more on that as well. The BA training, especially in English studies and comparative literature, has helped me develop a very wide appreciation for different forms of art. So as I mentioned in my exchange study, I also traveled quite widely around Europe. And there was one time when I noticed that there would be the Biennale fair like 2 months later after my travel there. So I really want to go there again, and I did at the end. So this is something I would not imagine doing if I were a different major, or if I were from a different kind of training. So after that travel, I really went back to the same city and attended the fair. And from there, I also got exposed to a lot of very different thought-provoking artworks, and this has also inspired in me an interest in exhibition design and spatial design that was quite relevant to my first job, like as an exhibition media relations role. So this has kind of stayed in me, but in a different way. So exhibitions in art or exhibitions in a trade or business context. And another skill that has helped me personally is how to tell better stories, how to tell more compelling stories. So in my spare time, I like to join different project-based work, such as policy design or some media, creating a media channel about Hong Kong, gathering different kinds of writers, contributors to share about the stories of Hong Kong. So I'm really like to engage in these projects, and from there I really got to learn how to tell stories from different perspectives, from the perspectives of local residents, from the perspectives of designers, architects, how to present Hong Kong as a hybrid city, and also to showcase the creativity that our people have.
That's terrific. Yeah, thank you. I saw Adelaide nodding, in fact, when you mentioned being able to craft better stories. But Adelaide, would you want to now take a shot? What are your views on how the BA has prepared you both professionally and personally?
Yes, sure. So I think maybe on a professional level first. So basically, I think what Lesley mentioned about crafting better stories, I think it's so true, because we really get to polish our research, writing, and presentation skills in our BA degree. And so just reflecting back on my 4 years as a BA student, every semester it's about writing different like research papers, for example, presenting different ideas in a concise but compelling manner, which can, really convey my idea, but also the idea of different like scholars, for example, that are out there in the field. And so I think, yeah, definitely, I think when I'm working now, at HSBC for 4 years already, it's all about, well, pretty much all about presentation, right? Like you have a great idea, you have a great analysis about something, but how do you tell not only to the customer, but to your own managers, to the different departments that you need to work with? So I think my BA degree definitely helped me. And I think telling better stories, and that encompasses research, writing, and presentation skills, which the BA degree definitely equipped me for. And on a more personal level, the first thing that comes to mind is the History Without Borders initiative, a project that I had the honor of being a part of. So in my final year as a history major, I was able to go to the UK and spend 2 weeks there, really digging into the, visiting the different archives and really getting my hands dirty, right? And then just to look at different artifacts, for example, different letters, which was an incredible experience. And I think from that reflecting, I really was able to not just understand the life of an academic a little bit more, but at the same time take my own initiative to craft, a project from start to finish. How do I manage that? And I think for that, it really taught me how to have better organization skills, have better planning skills, and how to have good communication skills, both locally and also when I'm alone in an overseas place that I've never been to, for example, before. And so I think that really helped me in my own personal development as well. So yeah, that's it for me.
Thank you. Thank you. Wendy, how about for you?
So for me, working in a Japanese bank requires native or business level of Japanese language proficiency and understanding of Japanese culture. And looking back, the Department of Japanese Studies fully equipped me with all the qualities I needed to enter a leading Japanese company. It offered a comprehensive selection of courses to improve the linguistic skills and help me fully understand as well as learn how to critically analyze the culture through history, literature, and even popular culture. Moreover, the best part of my training was that I had many opportunities for experiential learning. Like other alumni, I actually also went to exchange program at Kyoto University to study Japanese arts and garden. And the Department of Japanese Studies also offered me internship opportunities at a major Japanese bank at its Hong Kong branch. And also, I was able to participate in the Hong Kong University of Tokyo Joint Summer Program. So having actual experiences in Japanese society as a student assured me of working in Japan and successfully immersing myself in its culture as a graduate. So on the personal level, well, I think all of us is at year one, that BA degree for us is an exploring year. We don't decide major or minor soon. We got the opportunity to try different academic disciplines. So it trains us to plan for ourselves, to help find our interests, and we learn how to make decisions. The courses and programs that Department of Japanese Studies offered help to develop analytical and logical thinking, as well as presentation and social skills. Through these courses and programs, it helps me to think more like how the lifetime employment and hierarchy works in a Japanese company, and why the made in Japan products are so popular in Hong Kong. So these questions actually motivated me to know more about Japan. And the 2-week experiential learning program, the Hong Kong University of Tokyo Summer Joint Program, offered me a chance to team up with students from University of Tokyo to experience business practices and talk with Hong Kong's leading entrepreneurs. So the greatest thing that I learned from them is that every one of them has a goal in life. They know what they want. So being friends with them actually motivated me to find my own. And last but not least, thanks to the program, actually, I met my husband. Well, we are very different in many ways, but we learn from each other and try to be a better person. Yeah, that's my story.
Terrific. That's terrific. Can I ask one little follow-up? Did you know you wanted to work in Japan before you actually traveled there?
No, actually, no, not until the exchange program. I went to Kyoto on the 3rd year at BA degree, and I was not quite sure whether I should go to exchange because there was a very sensitive time between the Japan and the China relationship. But I'm very glad I was there, and especially in Kyoto. And probably the exchange program made me to feel like maybe working in Japan is not a bad choice.
Oh, that's great. That's great. Well, thank you. Thank you. So Felix, next, what are your views on how the BA equipped you professionally and personally?
Well, I always appreciate the faculty education because this is always a very liberal one. It gave me freedom to learn inside and outside the classroom. And I think this is very important because education is not just within the university's 4 years, it is a lifelong thing. And I mean, after graduation, I just feel like learning never stops, especially when I get into my career being very committed in a specific industry. But you have to set your goal, you have to shape your own vision, and you have to self-learn all the time. So I believe all these things are part of the education of the Faculty of Arts. And after 10 years of graduation, I can strongly feel that the philosophy of learning and living comes from the faculty education. And now I'm one of the top specialists in modern art. Now I'm one of the only Chinese auctioneer in Sotheby. Everything it's just something that have never been done in Hong Kong. But I'm just very happy that I got the courage and I have the vision that I could cultivate everything in this totally new industry in Asia. So it all comes from the education of the faculty.
Wow. And so you would extend that to your personal development too? That I mean, is that a little bit different, or is that?
Yes, exactly. I mean, it's like the faculty education is not spoon-fed. I mean, it's not about what I've learned is not about the faculty gave me a fish, but the technique of fishing. So this is very important, because being an art student, you have to always be flexible, you have to be innovative, and this is always not limited to what knowledge that you have learned, but the way of thinking, so that you could cultivate new things, develop new projects, having new ideas, which could inspire people. Do something different, do something never thought by the others. And this is very important. And I would say this is the very core of the art education, the liberal education. This is very important.
Mm-hmm. That's terrific. You've all mentioned a number of themes that I hope to touch on a little bit later, to do with interaction with others, sort of framing ideas for others, inspiring others. All of that is really crucial. So I do hope we can come back to that. But I want to move on to question 2 just for now. So back to Lesley for a moment. So this is a different kind of question, and you can define it however you want, but it's a question about how you define success. A number of you touched on having a goal and then being able to work toward that goal. And maybe this question is related to that, but what does success mean to you, and how do you define it? And you're, just free to answer however you like. So Lesley, maybe we'll start with you.
This is a bit tricky, because I'm not the kind of person with a big, wild childhood dream like when I was small. So at least none that I can recall now. So I'd rather keep my mind open to all kinds of opportunities that comes my way. So I guess this kind of understanding of success is one of ongoing process of self-actualization. So whatever opportunity that comes my way that I kind of treasure and I want to develop further, I will try to make the most out of it, and also make use of other resources, or maybe a training opportunities or development opportunities. Then I can optimize my development in a certain way, or towards a certain goal. And I think this I learned much later that it resonates quite a bit with the growth mindset that sometimes is quite popular to speak about these days. So I kind of tend to believe that I don't have a designated or fixed goal yet. I'll try to discover and learn along the way, and also try to develop new skills and new capabilities as I work towards that. So I would rather be loyal to my convictions today, not be bound by what I wanted to do before. So I'm kind of open to all kinds of opportunities that can help me excel and help me improve myself.
What's interesting in your answer is you didn't mention a particular occupation or a particular job, that success is about continuing personal growth. Is that I mean, I find that really interesting, that it's that's how you're defining it, more in terms of, are you still growing? Are you still expanding your horizons? So that's essentially what you mean, is if as long as you have that feeling inside that you are expanding your knowledge, expanding your opportunities, then that's a feeling of success for you.
Yeah, I think so, because right now I don't really have a fixed or very designated foreseeable goal that I need to achieve in order to be successful. So this, I think, it's also kind of ingrained in the humanities background and training. So there are many different kinds of fields that may emerge or evolve. So I'm not really sure how I can define myself in a certain field or profession, but maybe the job that I'm doing now may not exist in many years later. So, or maybe I may find myself in a new profession or a new field or scope in the future. So I'm not really sure how to define in terms of profession or job scope, but rather I'll keep my opportunities and possibilities open.
Terrific, terrific. Thank you. Adelaide, how about for you? How do you define success? And yeah, how do you think about that in your own life?
Sure. Actually, it's very similar to what Lesley has said. I think for me, success is being able to fulfill my potential. And I think when I reflect upon how that had kind of happened for me in the past, I think, and once I started joining HKU, for example, as a BA student, I think the first one is, being able to fulfill my potential in a way and understanding more about the world, right? And what I study every day. And so I think, for example, History Without Borders would be the first thing that comes to mind again, so yeah, just kind of expanding my horizon and my ability to understand a certain, area or a certain era in history, and able to, just go outside of my comfort zone to kind of come up with the plan on how to do the research, how to present my findings, etc. And at the same time, during my BA time, right, I also went to the University of Notre Dame in the US. So again, fulfilling my potential in that area of being able to travel alone by myself for 6 months. So at that time frame of my life, that was something that completely stretched me. So I think that would be kind of be labeled as success. And then, when I transitioned into my work, into HSBC, for example, then I did multiple rotations within the company, within the bank. And so I think taking up different projects at that time in different fields, that definitely stretched me. And I think that helped me to acquire different skills. So I would say that is also, a milestone of success as well. And now that I'm 4 years in, then I'm also thinking, how do I further fulfill my potential and further equip myself? And then an LLM came into mind. So that's why I'm studying now part-time at the Faculty of Law at HKU. So I think for me, success is not, just like, having one goal. I think it's about throughout my life and throughout different chapters of my life, how do I continuously fulfill my potential, identify opportunities to stretch myself, and actually actioning upon it and identifying what can I actually do and following through with it. So I think for me, it's a bit of a broad definition, but I think that is how I would define it.
No, that's great. And then, so when you talk about stretching yourself, I mean, could you say a little bit more about that? Would you say, for example, that the more you've been challenged or stretched, the easier it's become to then seek out new challenges and opportunities? I mean, is it sort of like that? The more you do it, the easier it gets, the more confidence you build?
Yeah, I would totally agree. I think just, an example is like when I first started, I had to do maybe some presentations, for example, to management team. And that for me was a huge, challenge. And it definitely stretched me because I had, I had no experience doing that before. But then the more I did it, the more comfortable I became and the more confident I became and the more aware of what I needed to, and the more aware I became of what I needed to do and the skills that I needed to, deliver a good presentation and something that could actually help the team, for example. So I think, yes, the more I, say yes to different opportunities, the more confidence I build, and also the more I see that there are actually other things that I can do as well to further develop and equip myself. So I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, no, that's great. Yeah, that's really a great insight. So Wendy, how about for you? I know you were already like some of the others, but you were going out of your comfort zone quite early and really opening yourself up to new opportunities. But how do you define success?
Yes, well, actually, probably my answer will quite be similar with Lesley and Adelaide. Well, of course, success has different meanings for different person, or it might change with times. So, but for me, success is not a materialistic result, but having one's own dream and a process of working very hard to realize that dream. So I went to an international school in Shanghai, and most of my friends in high school chose Bachelor of Business Administration. And even my parents once thought that maybe finance degree will be better, things I might earn more in the future. Even though I find myself a place in the finance industry now, but 10 years ago, I chose BA degree because I wanted to learn something different. I want to learn something that I can only learn when I am a student. I was very interested in the Sino-Japanese relationship, the cultural ties between the two countries. And actually, it was my dream to deepen the understanding of each other. So what I learned in the BA degree was not only knowledge, but skills and qualities, like I just mentioned, to make me think and act. And I think that I work kind of hard to make that dream come true. So currently, I'm able to give the best solutions to help the Japanese companies expanding their business in China. So, but for me now, I will never call myself successful, because as Adelaide and Lesley mentioned before, it's a long, long way journey. We still have so many challenges ahead. So we still need to keep moving forward with the courage. Yes.
It's a process, right? It's a process that unfolds. And as was already mentioned, you also maybe you change your goals too. So it's a continual process of maybe readjusting and recalibrating and then moving forward. Felix, how about for you? I know a little bit more about Felix's own personal story, but I know that Felix has worked incredibly hard, as he already talked about in the video, to develop knowledge and skills in an area that he didn't study as an undergraduate, and really has already achieved amazing success. But could you say more about how you define success and maybe how you maybe redefining it even now?
Well, Professor, I would say your question is a really tricky one, and I want to answer it very critically. Right. I mean, we're always surrounded by successful people during our university, because I know that especially in Hong Kong U, we have many successful CEOs, businessmen, government officials, and they are very successful in their own career, and we are always educated that we have to be successful. We are the best. But I mean, the society of Hong Kong is giving me a lot of definitions about being successful. Say having a very good title on your name card, having a very good family, marrying a beautiful wife or very handsome husband, buying a nice apartment, being very wealthy. But if we do not go through that self-reflection process, these are not ultimate. And I think the education of the faculty gave me freedom or the inspiration to think about what the world really is, what I really want to do, and what is my real life and career goal. So after 10 to 12 years after graduation, I put myself into many different environments of training, learning, and self-reflection. And I would not say I'm a very successful person until nowadays, but I'm pretty happy with what I'm doing, what I've done, and what I want to do, because I finally got a direction in terms of value instead of price and access. And I know what I want to do, what I want to achieve. And this is more important, because with this foundation, I am very capable of rallying people's support, friends, co-workers, colleagues. And this is more important of building, I would say, the mature years of my life and career.
Yeah, I find that really interesting, the capacity for self-reflection, as which then allows you to sort of position yourself and to see. I mean, you know, no one would ever say that money's not important, a job isn't important. Of course, those things are important. You can't live a life, you can't raise a family, you can't do many of the very, very practical things that many people want to do without sufficient resources. But what you said is really interesting, that if that's all you focus on, you reach a point where that's not really enough, and you have to somehow have a capacity to be able to reflect on what's really important to you. And maybe, you know, once you've achieved all those things financially, the things that actually become really important to you, maybe they have more to do with relationships. Maybe they have more to do with, you know, experiences that you want to have in life, or that you want to have with your family in life. I mean, I'm quite struck by that, because I think you've all touched on it in a different way, that your training in the Faculty of Arts has given you the ability to reflect, the ability to kind of think about values. And values are not just financial. Values are also experiential. Values are lived in different ways. So I find, yeah, that's great. No, terrific. No, thank you all. That's really a wonderful answer. Let's shift gears a little bit. I'll go back to Lesley again. But what do you know now that you wished you had known when you were a student? And I this could also be a form of advice. So that's why I kind of asked an additional question, which is, what is the best piece of advice you've received? But maybe you can treat those as sort of two answers. So what do you know now that you wished you'd known when you were younger? And then maybe give us an example of the best piece of advice you've received or that you learned somehow in your journey. So Lesley.
I think what my biggest regret, if I may, would be I have not broadened my exposure wide enough. I've not tried as much industries and roles and opportunities as I thought I should. So, and this is especially true when I'm in a HR position in my current company now. So when I review others' CV, I always have this feeling that I wish I had that CV. I wish I also tried something like that. So I think when I was studying in university, my interest and passion lies very heavily on arts and culture. So the kinds of internships, the kinds of volunteer work and learning opportunities, almost all of them come from arts and culture organizations and festivals. This was a very heavily leaning towards a certain industry, but then when I was in a graduate year, I kind of worried that what kind of job will this open me up to, or what kind of scope will employers find this relevant to? Because it seems quite a specialized or focused kind of job scope. So if I could do university again, if I could come back to study BA again at HKU, I would rather try more different opportunities and try more different industries as well. Apart from arts and cultural organizations, I'm also interested to see maybe technology and maybe more business context. So, and I think this would also further broaden my horizons and scope to prepare and equip myself for more different kinds of opportunities. And for the best piece of advice I've received, I'm very fortunate to have met many mentors and very nice supervisors along my career journey, and a lot from them. But the most memorable piece of advice actually came from one of my volunteer projects at a literary festival in Hong Kong. So my job was scanning and documenting some media clippings of that event. And it was kind of a very typical, boring administration job. And at that time, the accountant there who I met sometimes when I went to the office, said to me, it may be a very repetitive job, but over time you will find a way to do it in the most efficient way. So I'm kind of quite inspired at that time, because I just treat it as a just normal admin job, also documenting stuff. But then even though it is a very trivial, it sounds very petty, just a very minor job, but then it is also important. It is also something that I need to work towards, and also need to try a way to do it most efficiently, and not just to do it like not like wholeheartedly. So this is very important to me as I learn to be methodical in all the work that I do. So even if it's just a routine or admin job, or whatever kind of opportunities and jobs, I like to develop a very methodical way or approach to do it. And this is also a groundwork of all other kinds of responsibilities as well. And also when I was leading a digital transformation project in our current company, we really try to adopt technology, we try to digitalize our processes and optimize our workflows. I really see the value of admin now. Like admin actually holds a lot of data, actually holds a lot of insights into how we run the practice, how we run an organization. So when we try to transform that, or when we try to make it more efficient, actually we have to go back to the basics, go back to the groundwork of doing everything right, and doing everything, put in investing our heart and time and resources into doing every, however trivial step. I think this is the thing that I learned.
Oh, that's great. That's great. Adelaide, how about for you?
Yeah, sure. I think for what I wish I had known or done when I was in school, I think two things. Firstly, it's actually joining more extracurriculars. I think because, while I had a really fruitful learning in the classroom, for example, I focused a lot of my energy outside of the classroom, maybe just focusing on one or two extracurriculars. So for me, it was singing, a cappella group. So that took up quite a bit of my time, but at the same time, looking back, I'm like, oh, I could have done even more to, kind of get to know students that are maybe in other faculties as well, to, share more insights and also to build more relationships. And I think having more, just being involved in more student clubs at school, I think it's actually a really invaluable experience because you can really just, be creative and also have the resources and have the network behind you to help you kind of implement your ideas. So I think that's number one. And number two, it's looking back, I wish I was able to invest more into maybe my classmates who are younger than me, maybe 2 or 3 years below me, to kind of just like help them or be more of a mentor to them as well. Because thinking back, like I'm really glad I was able to know people who are maybe a few years above me in the BA, faculty, or maybe in other faculties as well, who gave me a lot of guidance throughout my time in university and after I graduated. So I think my regret would be, not building enough of these relationships. And so I think my advice would be bold. I think to the students at HKU, especially in the BA program, it's be bold. Don't limit yourself. Try different student clubs. Maybe in your first year, maybe do a sports-related club, and then maybe in the second year, do something different, maybe more community service related, so you can have a more holistic experience when you graduate. And also reach out to the students that are maybe 1 or 2 years above you, who may still be in the same class as you for some, electives, for example, because you never know where those relationships will take you and how, that can actually sow into your life later on after you graduate. And so I think, being a student at HKU, especially in the BA program, I think you have so many opportunities and so many, you have a lot of time, you have more time in your hands than, after you graduate and have a more 9 to 6 kind of job, right? So I think don't waste it, be bold, don't limit yourself, reach out. And I think you won't have any regrets if you did that.
Your point about reaching out to students, I find very interesting too. So it would seem natural that you'd want to reach out to students that are older than you because they have more experience and you're learning the ropes, you're learning how to go through. But you also talked about reaching out to students younger than you. How would you do that? I'm just curious if what would you have done differently? Would you have just met them socially more? Would you have maybe tried to tutor them? What sort of things would you suggest if you're advising somebody else to do this? Like, how would you do it?
Yeah, I think, in classes, usually, you have maybe in maybe smaller classes or in tutorials, for example, right? Like you have some students that may, that you need to do a self-introduction first about, which year you may be in, for example, like things like that. I remember I had to do that before. And so I think sometimes as the older person, I think I can actually reach out and be like, hey, so maybe after class and just be like, hey, maybe I have found a job now. I know you're probably looking for internships, planning about what to do in the upcoming summer. How can I help you? I think it's about just being bold and just kind of, taking the initiative, I think, to do it. And I think there are many different opportunities. Once, I think you mentioned, maybe it could be social or it could be in class. So I think both ways could work, but I think it's just having that mindset and to take the initiative, and when the opportunities come up, then just actually actioning upon it.
That's great. That's great. Because you are right. There are no, there's no way to know in advance what sort of opportunities come out of these relationships. I mean, mutually beneficial opportunities. So sometimes just by pure happenstance, you meet people that later in life become very important for one reason or another. So that's a great point. So Wendy, how about for you? So what do you know now that you wish you'd known maybe when you were younger? And also, what's the best piece of advice you've received in your career or in life?
I wish I had known that I should ask more questions and take more chances. I would tell students now, don't be afraid to raise your hand in the lecture with for example, hundreds of people. Be proactive and ask questions such as how or why or when. Learn and make it a habit to be curious, to understand more background about something that interests you. Well, because we need to practice with these skills to understand more about the background. And with the supportive environment of the classroom, with the teachers there to help you, with Professor Collins there as well. Once we start to work, we need to take on more responsibility, and we are expected to think on our own. It will be never easy like it was when we were students. Take every single chance to learn not only the knowledge at university, but also the skills, since probably no one will teach us how to behave or how to respond at work. As graduates, we all need to figure these things by ourselves. Mm-hmm. And as for the best piece of advice I've received in my career, well, in Japanese, actually, there is a saying called "tadashi koto o tadashiku okonau," which means do the right thing and do it the right way. Mm. So companies and society, it is far more complicated than we can imagine. Unexpected things happen every day. There's trouble, as always. Sometimes one mistake could lead to very serious consequences. For example, it could affect another company's business, or even more serious, someone's fate. Mm-hmm. Each decision should be made with responsibility. Usually, there is no textbook, no any material in the office. So sometimes even our supervisor or boss might not know what to do. So I was taught whenever I faced a tough decision, I need to do the right thing and do it the right way. In other words, never take shortcuts, don't cheat anyone, and don't do something we feel is not right. Therefore, I always do my best to work with honesty and integrity.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. No, that's terrific. Let me just ask you though on this question about when you're in a situation where you don't know what to do, and maybe even the people around you don't know what to do. What do you do? I mean, how do you find a solution that works?
Yes, well, first we need some qualities and skills that I think most of us mentioned about analytical and about logical thinking, right? So we need to make a list, maybe list up all the pros and the cons about the current situation. So what is the trouble we are facing, and for example, how many solutions actually we have, and which one will achieve the most optimal and the most best outcome according to each solution. So I think first thinking is really important, and making all the lists and talking with people surround you and discuss why it is the right thing to do. So that's usually what I will do.
Yeah, no, that's great. Thank you. Felix, how about for you?
Well, I mean, during my university time, I have been a very committed student leader and a student athlete. Of course, it brought me a lot of memories and achievements, because I took part in the World Championship of Lacrosse in 2006 as a year 2, year 3 students. And I have organized some international sporting events for the University of Hong Kong, together with Singapore, Malaysia, Shanghai, and Macau. So these are all very good memories, but I would say at the same time, my commitment had a trade-off, that I didn't have a chance to take part in exchange programs. So I really missed it. Nowadays I've been very committed in my industry, which make me unable to study abroad in the other side of the world again. So I would say this is a part of my regret. And being a BA student, I would say people expect all of us to be very capable of different languages, capable of speaking different languages. So I would say if I was given one more chance to study in a university, probably I would learn some more foreign languages, say French, Korean, Japanese languages, which will be very, very useful as an art graduate in the career world.
Oh, fantastic. So you're not the only one that maybe didn't have an opportunity to go abroad. I mean, we try to encourage and make that possible for as many students, but sure, sometimes it doesn't, happen. It doesn't mean that you can't sort of make up for that. I mean, as you get older and as you move up within your company, there may also be further opportunities there. So, I mean, I know you see that as a regret, but I also think that with time, maybe what you regret, you'll see a different way. Maybe it's not such a bad thing. It just didn't happen. It just didn't happen. But there are lots of other opportunities in life to more than compensate for that. I mean, this is very true. What's interesting that several of you have said is almost that you wish you could have done more as a BA student. And I think one of you even said, I wish I could get another BA or to that effect. I mean, really, would you go back to school again if you had that opportunity and get another BA? No. I mean, I hope not, right?
Maybe MA?
You would. But the idea is that you still have the capacity to grow and learn and do more things. But I think maybe what you miss, maybe what you feel nostalgic about is it is a free time, a time to explore. Maybe you don't have as many outside burdens on you. And that's what you're really pointing to. That take advantage of that free time while you're a student and really make the most of it, right? That seems to be what you kind of all alluding to. Okay, I have a different question now, and it's one that I all want you to really think about, but give us an example of a challenging experience that you've encountered in your professional journey and maybe how you overcame it. This is a question, interestingly enough, we often ask in the US of job candidates and even students, but it's a question that tries to elicit or tries to draw out a sense of how you reflect on things and grow. So, I mean, there's no right answer. There's no right answer. It's just more of a question about what you found difficult and then how you work to solve it. And you'd be amazed sometimes that other people find these kinds of the answers to these kinds of questions quite valuable because you each have a different approach to problem solving. And so that's really what this question is about. So, so we can go back to Lesley again, if you'd like. And so give us an example of a challenging experience that you had and overcome.
Yeah, it took me quite a while to formulate the kind of response I would give and also go through my past experiences. But then the challenging experience was not one to be overcome, but rather that a situation that I need to handle and tread very carefully. So it was actually an inclusion program to be implemented at our company. We got the chance to employ a person with very special circumstances, and then as the kind of HR contact and person in charge and coordinator, I would have to handle the employment related matters as well. And so quite like what Wendy just mentioned about decision making and encountering very new environments and challenges. So I have no experience of this at all. Actually, not even someone with any special background, but just recruiting and welcoming a newcomer to our firm and with no prior background. So this is also something I need to learn to build a team, to lead, and to how to make someone feel at home in our environment. So at that time, I also consulted a lot of people, and I was in close contact with our principal, as well as the potential colleagues, family, and other relevant officers that are participating in this program. So it was quite a challenging experience in the sense that I need to think carefully and also liaise and communicate with all these relevant parties. And also I have to strike the balance, the very delicate balance of not probing too much or not exposing too much confidential details, or not to compel one to expose oneself, because actually our firm is a very close-knit and very friendly team. So we are very used to being very open to one another. Everyone knows the stories of other people very well. But then if we are to welcome a new team member and we want to not embarrass the new colleague, and also to also keep our very friendly and warm and productive atmosphere as well. So this is a very delicate balance that we need to strike. So at that time, it was quite a challenge as well. So apart from liaising with the other relevant parties, I also consulted some of my friends who were being trained to be psychologists and counselors at the time. So how would they handle this kind of situation? How would they carry on a very difficult conversation? How would they manage this relationship very carefully, but also not to make it embarrassing or difficult. So with all those preparation done beforehand, when I really get to meet the new colleague for the first time, I was also quite nervous. But then following that time, I put considerable time in briefing and guiding through. So it was also a very long process of mentorship. So what I learned from that was to prepare, always do a lot of preparation, and like what Wendy just said, analyze the situation, analyze what could be done and what are the pros and cons. Is there a better way that can achieve the same outcome? And also to lower expectations. Sorry. So actually, for a newcomer, actually, regardless of background, so it is like just training any new colleague to a team. So someone maybe not from a legal background, or someone like me from a BA or from another major. So it's about the process of bringing him or bringing her into the team and to make oneself feel at home, and not be maybe intimidated by maybe a law firm or maybe by a legal industry, but rather to achieve the most of the potentials, and also to help build the growth and the career that colleague wants. So this is the kind of lesson that I learned. It's also the very first leadership lesson I've learned from this experience, and it's also very interesting. This program has ended actually, so that colleague has also left, but we've all had very happy memories and shared very nice friendly moments together. So this is something that I will bear in mind when we maybe need to train another colleague, or when we need to build and expand on a team, whether in Hong Kong or overseas, in maybe our overseas office. So this is something that I need to take with myself when I carry on my own career as well.
Yeah, no, that's a terrific answer. And like you said, it is a very important ingredient to leadership ultimately, not just success, however we may define it, but in the long run, having skills like that are crucial to building, managing, and ultimately leading teams, but developing the kind of respect with colleagues so that they will ultimately want to work with you and for you and be part of your network. So I think going forward, what you just said is really, really important, even if we were to talk specifically about leadership. Adelaide, how about for you? A challenging experience that you've dealt with and overcome?
Yeah, sure. I think the challenge that comes to mind happened last year when I had to kind of lead a regulatory-related project in HSBC. So ultimately, we had to do, report the results, or do a presentation for our very senior management. And so this project included a lot of stakeholder management across the business, across the bank. We had very tight deadlines, large implications, and we could not deliver. So the pressure was on, and I had to take, kind of the lead on this item. And so I think from that experience, so it happened last year, so everything went fine, and we were able to deliver everything. But I think reflecting back on it, I think I kind of understood how I think I was able to get from not knowing how to do it really at the beginning to actually being able to execute. And I think it included 5 kind of key strategies or 5 steps. The first one is to really understand the objective what the problem statement is. What am I trying to solve? And number 2 is to have a plan and to understand how to actually come up with clear milestones, for example, to meet that objective. And number 3 is to drive accountability across the organization or across the stakeholders that I need to manage. So ensuring that everybody knows that they had to play a role and had to deliver by a certain time or a date. And number 4 is to be adaptive, because things change as time goes by. And so I think what we call it at HSBC is agile. I think it's also a term that's thrown around different companies now, especially with tech startups and all that. But yes, work with an agile mindset and agile approach to be reflective of any new changes that can happen that may, compromise the timeline or things like that. So yeah, it's to have a cool mind, but to be adaptive. And number 5 is to speak up, if any problems come up. So I think that comes with, having mentors and actually having the courage to think of, okay, so these are the problems that I might have. These are maybe the obstacles. Who do I need to speak to get them resolved ASAP? So I think with this kind of framework, so objective, plan, draft accountability, being agile or adaptive, and speaking up. So I think these things can be applied to also BA students or just students across the university in different research projects that they may be doing, in partnership with a professor or with their classmates, or if they're in a student club, for example, needing to do presentations, to get funding, to drive different things, to partner with companies outside of HKU to do collaborations, for example. And I think for me, that was what I had a key takeaway of. I had a challenge. This was how I kind of executed in order to meet the deadline and to deliver what I had to do. And hopefully that helps whoever's listening on the call to also apply that as well.
No, I think that's a really great answer. I wonder, do you apply that formula to other areas of life too, or is it just? I mean, because what you said is perfect, and it's exactly the kind of framework in which many of us, whether it's in the university or whether it's in business or whatever, have to think about things. Do you think it has applicability beyond that, beyond professional life?
Yeah, I definitely think so. I think. I think, even if it comes to like fitness or, having fitness goals or wealth goals for myself or like for different people, right? Like whatever goals or ambitions that you have and on a more personal level, right? So it's like, if I want to do a fitness plan for myself, especially, in COVID days, right? Most importantly is to be healthy, right? So what am I trying to achieve? How am I going to achieve it? And like thinking around, so the gym may be closed now. So that requires some adaptability. How do I work out at home, for example? How do I eat healthily? Things like that. So I think, and also if I have questions, right, who do I speak up to, right? It may not necessarily just be, go to, nutritionist, but, there's the internet now. There's so many things I can do to get information. So yes, I think like this can be applied across different areas of life.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. So Wendy, how about for you?
Yes.
Overcome?
Yeah, my challenging experience. The first time I was in charge of a project to organize a seminar for 300 people was very challenging for me. I felt very overwhelmed, so I tried to balance my time and navigate with the new responsibilities. I needed to devise the seminar content and deal with colleagues from different departments, organize meetings, draft a poster, and also liaise with speakers from other companies as well. And the language is, of course, all in Japanese. So a first-time project is always challenging. So how I overcame it, I made sure I was very well organized. First, I took a deep breath, noted everything I need to do according to priorities, double-checked the schedule, and make notes about any details that I can realize for improvements or pay special attention to. Fortunately, the seminar was a great success. What I learned from the experience is that time management and the checklists are very important, especially when we cannot see the goal clearly. Usually, we will think some work is too much because we are not sure where is the goal. So making lists and breaking down each activity into achievable goals not only helped us trace back what we had done, but it also helped us to lead and direct me. So such preparation and training helps us to imagine what will happen next time. And we always learn from the past experience. Yes.
No, that's a great answer. Yeah, really, really the last two. I mean, really great answers for life, I think, for all of us, myself included. Felix, how about for you? Challenging experience that you've overcome and maybe what you got out of that experience.
Well, I would say two things. First, it's the first 3 years before, after graduation and before joining Sotheby's. It's a long journey to find what I really want to do after graduation, because I have a Chinese history and literature background, which is not, it is a very important training, but it's not 100% for a job. So it took me 3 years to understand myself, what I really want to do. as a career path. So I spent 1 year in Beijing in an advertising agency, understanding our country's capital, understanding the world. And then afterwards, I came back to an art museum as a research assistant to further my study and academic training before being an auctioneer, an art specialist. So it took me some time to transform myself from a history and literature student to become an auction house trainee. So this is the first thing. And the second thing, it's about 5 years ago when I was having worked 5 years in Sotheby's, I am turning myself from a specialist, which is more academic, scholaristic, to a salesperson. So nowadays I'm a head of sales. So it's a very realistic position. I have to bring in business. So this is very different from the education that we received because we tend to be more academic. So I have to shift my mindset from academic to a salesperson. So the education of art is very important because it taught me to be liberal, to be flexible, and never afraid of having do-overs and learning from the very beginning. So I would say these two things has been the most challenging occasions that I have in my 10 to 12 years of career after graduation.
Sure. Could I go back to something you said, which is that clearly your background in Chinese history and culture didn't prepare you specifically to become a specialist at Sotheby's in Chinese art, but it must have helped you. I mean, it must have given you a context in that maybe somebody else who hadn't studied this just wouldn't have at all, right? So I was going to ask you if it did come together somewhat for you as you were training as a specialist. I know you've moved beyond that now, but this must have enabled you to do your job as a specialist maybe even better than somebody without that background. Would you say, or would you agree with that?
Well, I would say the training of history and literature is absolutely important, but the assistance of them in my career is more in the indirect way, but a very fundamental way. The vocational training is more done by Sotheby's. I learned from my supervisors, by my seniors, and a lot of self-taught courses by reading a lot of additional books, additional documentary videos about what fine art is and what modern art is, which sounds similar to literature and history, but by nature they are very different indeed.
Very different.
But the history and literature training is very important because, first of all, I'm very good at writing, listening, and speaking. So this is very important as a communication skills. When I produce catalogs, when I talk to my clients, I have to be outgoing. I have to be very capable of manipulating languages, Chinese, English, Cantonese. So it helps me a lot, and this is part of the reason why I am chosen to be trained as an auctioneer, which is not very common among the Chinese staff in Asia.
Right.
Secondly, history is absolutely important because history is not just about knowledge. I would say history is a great encyclopedia of case studies. So when I am moving on in my career of an auction industry, I take references from history about how people soar in their own career. Historical people, they have their own career. Politicians, soldiers, scholars, they have their own careers. And I learned how they overcome difficulties, how they receive assistance, how they win support from people during their career. So this is very important. When I face problems, sometimes I just feel very helpless. But with the very rich history background that I received, I try to resort to the past cases, that important historical icons, how they survive when they face very, very difficult problems. And it helped a lot. It helped me a lot.
That's a great answer, partly because you and I both share an interest in history, but it's true. Yeah. We sometimes underestimate how many solutions are there in the historical record if you just used it in a practical way, like you've said. Look to it as case studies. I really like that. Let's just stay with you for a minute, Felix. We'll just reverse the order a little bit. I want to ask, now where you are, really I have a couple more questions, but now where you are, is there anything that you regularly do to kind of keep yourself, the way I worded the question was to keep being successful, but what I really mean is, are there any good habits that you have that kind of keep you either on top of your discipline or on top of your profession? What are the things that, just practical things that you do? Do you have mentors that you talk to on a regular basis? Do you do you regularly maybe have a chat with certain colleagues? Is it this sort of thing? You just mentioned, Felix, reading history, but maybe elaborate a little. What are the things? And I really am speaking about now and sort of going forward, because we're all in the process of kind of growing and advancing ourselves. So what are the things that you kind of regularly do now to kind of keep yourself nimble and agile?
Well, I would say, yes, you always need a mentor. Many mentors when alongside your career progress. So I always have a few very good senior people who are happy to be my mentor and share their perception of me from an external eye. And they would give me advices about what I should do and what I could do. And they always give me inspirations and perspectives. Well, say, for example, 5 years ago, when I was doing pretty well as a specialist, I was inspired that I should do more or focus more on sales. And at the same time, they advised me that if I'm really that good at public speaking, that I should be involved more in teaching outside my business, which will build a better portfolio of myself. So gradually, I built a more all-round portfolio for myself. So nowadays, I have been teaching in Shanghai. I've been teaching in Beijing, very top universities. At the same time, I'm invited by private and public museums to do sharings about modern arts in Asia. So this is very important. And at the same time, I would say, when you are making progress in your career, make sure it's very important and very useful that you have a good headhunter friend, because they will give you your market value in the talent market. So this is probably a very tangible measurement of how important you are and how much you could improve yourself and make you more valuable in the talent market.
Terrific. Thank you. Wendy, how about you?
Yes. Just like Felix, I also have many mentors, and also because I'm friends with my professors. I think we have mentorship program at HKU, and I was in the mentorship program, and I was very close, and I still am very close with my mentor, and I actually invited her and also my professor at my wedding 1 year ago. So we still keep very close relationship after the graduation. So regarding with the strategy, including having many mentors and be friends with the inspiring people, your inspiring tutors, professors, friends, I will also say, don't be afraid to fail and work very hard. I have failed many times in the past. For example, I failed many job interviews. I could not understand banking terms in Japanese at first. What are they talking about? But I work very hard. I work very hard to over the years, and I try to learn from those failing experiences. And I could not, but still back to the first strategy, I could not be who I am today without the help of my professors and mentors and friends I know from at Hong Kong U. They are very inspiring because I think they are so successful, which keep me motivated to grow into a better person, to make my own dream come true. Yes.
Oh, that's terrific. Thank you. Very nice. Adelaide, how about for you? Just anything that you do regularly? This is practical advice. Ultimately, I want our viewers to take away some practical tips, and there have been many that have been shared, but what do you do now to just keep in touch with things and keep continuing your successful journey?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I absolutely echo with everything that was said before about mentorship. Yes, I cannot emphasize how important it is to have mentors in your life, just even professionally or personally, just to kind of show you that there are actually a lot more ideas and thinking out there that can be explored. But I think for me personally, I think something that comes to mind is, I think, two things. The first one is to be empathetic. And what does that really mean is to really put myself into the shoes of others whenever I'm, having a professional relationship or a personal relationship, is to, before making a judgment or coming up with an idea, to take a pause and think, hey, how will it be coming from maybe that person's angle, that the other person I'm actually trying to help or like work with, for example. And I think the older I get, I guess, the more I realize how important it is to really put myself into the shoes of others. And I think, as a university student, it'll be really beneficial to start thinking from that angle early on, and to develop that habit and mindset. Number two is, I cannot stress how important it is, but to have a work-life balance. I think for me, there were moments, in my work, for some of my rotations, for example, during my management training years, where I had to work till very, very late at night. And I mean, yes, I delivered well, etc. But at the same time, it also made me reflect that, it's equally important to maintain my health and maintain my personal relationships outside of work to actually be healthy, holistically. So I think, as maybe as a university student, I think maybe some students are extremely driven, and that's great, but at the same time, have time set aside for, fitness, exercise, eating healthy. I think it's really important to have a balance between, achieving, the academic goals or personal goals, and at the same time, kind of maintaining a balance with your health, having enough sleep. I think that is really crucial, and that shouldn't be slighted ever. So, yeah.
Yeah. And then finally, Lesley, what do you do on a regular basis to sort of keeps you agile?
Yeah, seeking out mentoring, definitely. Actually, one of my most important mentors, I encountered him when I was serving in the Arts Association of HKU. So it was when I was organizing an academic event, and I met this mentor. At that time, he was the host of one of the events that we organized. But then afterwards, this relationship extends well beyond that particular project. But then I also got to intern with him, actually. So it was a very interesting experience. And he also inspired me that actually humanities training, the BA training, is very valuable, even in business context, in commercial environments. So this is actually the first time that I'm inspired to seek out more opportunities other than literary and cultural arts. So I think mentorship is really important for me. And I also second what Adelaide just said about being empathetic. And this is especially important when we work with multicultural teams or very diverse teams. So we need to really think from other people's point of views, and as well as taking into account their own cultural backgrounds and circumstances as well. And my own tip, I think, would be to keep your hobbies and passions alive, because I really believe we can only excel and do well in things that we feel a conviction in. I think this is something that reminds me of what Dr. Richard said in creative writing class. Like when we develop a story, when we write a creative piece of work, we need to find the conviction that drives the characters, that drives the plot. So I think it's really the same thing in life or in personal growth and journey. We need to identify what drives us, like for your inner self. So what inspires you, what motivates you, we need to hold on to that and make that continuously a fuel for personal growth and development continuously. So for myself, the one thing that I really seem to do very consistently is writing. This is a kind of hobby, I would say. In the past, I focused more on creative writing, but now maybe more inspired by work. I would write more about technology, innovation, as well as write about the projects that I do on the sidelines, such as design or social innovation or bottom-up policy. So these are some other topics and themes that I continuously engage myself in my spare time, and I try to take the lessons from that and write about it. Like we write an article, write some commentaries or reviews. I'll make myself reflect on all the experiences that I had, and to try to record my own feelings and experiences as I learned from these opportunities. So this is something that I would do.
Right, that's great. So one more question. We can even stay with you, Lesley, since you talked a little bit about it already. It has to do with advice. So given the current environment, we'll treat this like a lightning round. So we'll try to get quick answers from all of you. But given the current environment, and it's a complicated one. Of course, we have public health issues, we have global economic downturn issues, we have political issues. What advice would you have for young people today? What advice would you give them in terms of thinking about the next steps in their career? And much great advice. I mean, I will just tell you in advance, you've already given much fantastic advice. I hope our viewers can see the wisdom in what many of you have said. But if you could summarize maybe for us in a sentence or two, what advice would you give young people today? Starting with you, Lesley.
Yeah, my three very quick advice tips would be, the first one is to learn new skills. I think this is also a good time, maybe now, like even for a pandemic period, it's hard to keep in touch physically, but then we also can take our own time through distance learning, through e-learning, and we can acquire new skills and equip ourselves for the future. Like we can learn something like language or new programming technology, or learn about design, learn about the things that you think you've always wanted to do, but you didn't have time. So now maybe it's a good time so we can take a pause and also equip ourselves differently. And the other quick tip would be to follow bigger minds, like what Felix just said. History is a big lesson for us. And apart from history, also other role models or other bigger minds, brighter minds, the giants that we can stand on the shoulders, and then to keep learning from them, maybe through reading, writing, reading and expressing yourselves by writing or creating. And my third quick tip would be to keep being creative, maybe creating a work, writing, a drawing, or whatever way that can express yourself and showcase this as a portfolio. So I think this is also quite important, as in you never know if your hobby or something that you develop as an interest may eventually turn into your career, or you may develop a second career to follow that. So in your free time, you can make the best use of it to learn new things, keep learning, and also organize these portfolio and showcase that in a presentable and organized manner. I think this is important to prepare ourselves for the future.
Fantastic. Adelaide.
Yeah, I think for me, it's just one thing. I think it's don't limit yourself, because I think back when I was a student, back at being a BA student, I think sometimes I would think like, oh, if I apply for internships or apply for different jobs, for example, like, oh, are my skills really relevant? Are my experiences as a BA student really relevant for that job? Am I even going to have a chance to, get an interview or something like that? And my answer is, yes, you will. So don't limit yourself. I mean, I was a BA student, and then I got into a management trainee program, at a bank, and like working with people of completely different backgrounds. So don't limit yourself, and just go for it. Yeah.
Fantastic. Wendy.
Yeah, my quick tip will be more adaptive and be prepared for new changes. The world is undergoing big changes, so seize this opportunity to observe what is happening. And I think it's a great opportunity to learn, to think about how it might link with your current dream and life goals. So be more adaptive, to think, to reflect what you really want to do, and be prepared for new changes. things might be different from the from previous years. For example, the hiring policies of the company and something that usually happened in the past. So practice some new rules and new skills, learn some new skills, and keep updated with everything new. Try to grow with these changes.
Mm-hmm. Great. And Felix, I'll give you the last word.
Well, I would say be creative of building your portfolio and be sensitive of opportunities. I mean, especially for undergraduate students, you're looking for a job. I know that you want to write a good CV. That's why the very generic way is to look for internships, working opportunities. But well, nowadays, this is 21st century, and especially during this very unusual historical time. I mean, try to launch different projects instead of looking for internships offered by NMCs. Well, I mean, you just want to show how good you are on the CV, which is not necessarily to be internships. So launch your own projects. I mean, nowadays you can write blogs, you can be a YouTuber, upload videos. I mean, share your findings, very unique perspectives about a specific topic. Do it yourself. You are your own platform. So you don't have to necessarily rely on the opportunities provided by the others. Create your own opportunities. Let people see you. Let people look at you. This is more important than having a very good experience in, say, investment banks or something else. I mean, we are looking for some people with a good internships, but at the same time, we are looking for interesting people who have very independent minds. I mean, unusual creativities and something different. So especially BA students, well, sometimes we are in direct competition with the business students or engineering students, but I mean, build our own advantages. I mean, show how good we are and how different we are. This is very important. Well, this is an advice of a head of sales of an auction house.
Wonderful note to end on. And Felix, Wendy, Adelaide, Lesley, I just want to thank you all for your candor, for your thoughtfulness. You've really contributed enormously, I think, today to giving other students and just to giving our audience members generally your perspective, sharing your thoughts, giving them fantastically practical advice too, which is also something I'd really hoped for. So thank you so much for joining us today. And I'd like to thank our audience for joining us for today's Summer Leadership Forum. It's really been my pleasure to host you all today. I wish you all much success, continued success. Please keep in touch with the Faculty of Arts, and we are watching your future progress. So take care, and thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.